What's happening, guys? Steve Maxwell. If you don't know Steve Maxwell, his bio is really tough to give you because he's been doing this for so long, and he'll go into this interview in so many different topics. He's obviously been on Joe Rogan twice. He's going on a third time. He was an early trainer to Hoist Gracie, very close with the Gracies. He was probably the earliest adopter of kettlebells, conducted the first kettlebell class in the U.S. He's extremely fascinating. He's one of these guys that inspires me because he's out there. So there's not a lot of guys that get to that level. So this is like a grand master in fitness. So his life experience is so vast. He's seen the trends come and go. So he's developed some core principles, and I believe he's right on the money. He also goes into spirituality, why we're here, what's our life's purpose. He goes into everything from footwear, gum, Adderalls, TRT, why CrossFit might be not the best idea. Even if you're a CrossFitter, you should watch that, because if an opinion is not completely what I agree, I should still take a look at it and see if I feel like it's valid or not. This is what you do when you educate yourself. So this interview was fascinating. It was fantastic. It was compelling. I wanted to tread on some topics or subjects that maybe I've watched every single interview you possibly could have. I've researched you completely, so I want to kind of tread on some material that maybe hasn't been covered yet, if that's okay with you.
Okay, sure, no problem. Ask away.
Okay, this question is from me. You carry around all of your belongings in one bag.
That is correct.
Okay.
I am basically, over the years, I've become, I guess, an extreme minimalist.
I love it. So what is in that bag? That's what I want to know.
Well, I mean, I could actually, I often thought that it might be really interesting just to lay everything out on the bed and just show people what I can. But it's like 4 pair of lightweight trousers and about 4 pair of shorts. Obviously T-shirts, a couple hoodies, and a rain jacket. That's about all you need. And then for really cool weather, I have like a North Face, one of those hollow fill type jackets that basically packs in its own little pocket. Everything has to be really compact.
Exactly.
Quick dry, stuff that you can wash in a hotel sink, and then we'll just dry it the next day. And I've become quite the expert in high-tech fabrics, and a lot of the stuff that you would see, let's say, like at REI or Eastern Mountain Sport. That's the type of stuff that I wear most of the time. And it does double because, in the old days, people didn't have like workout clothes. You just worked out. Mm-hmm. So most of the stuff I have, you could go mountain climbing, hiking, rolling around in the grass, climb a tree, go take a run, wash it in the sink, shake it out. It'll be dry the next day. So, but yeah, just real minimal clothes. All my shoes are real minimal. I'm really into that whole, I hate to use the term, but barefoot shoes, I'm virtually no support, with really good ground feel. So I can pack those away really easily, lightweight. So I have like 3 pair of those type of real minimal shoes and a pair of Huarache running sandals, like the Tarahumara Indians wear. Comes from this guy from the company Luna Sandals. I really like those a lot. And you have like my flip-flops.
You have a particular shoe that's different. I have the Vibrams. You obviously familiar with Vibrams.
Oh yeah, sure.
And I've been an early sporter. I have extreme flat feet, and wearing the Vibrams, at least when I work out, has given my toes a lot more ability to flex, and my feet actually have a little bit of an arch now, I would say, from correcting that flatness.
Well, a lot of people don't realize just how important it is to have as little shoe as possible on the foot. 70% of the information that your brain receives about where you are in space and where you're coming from pretty much comes from the soles of the feet and the palms of the hand and your face. And a lot of this information is being blocked to the brain when you're wearing big, thick, over-engineered running shoes. And it actually makes you weaker, muscularly weaker. It's certainly not a good thing. Your feet are designed in such a way to be natural shock absorbers, but when you try to use the shoe to absorb shock, it basically atrophies the muscles of the feet and the ankles and the calves, and the feet become rather flaccid and weak, and it predisposes you more towards foot and knee injuries. that's not to say that people should just throw their shoes off and just start, going out and doing if you've been wearing shoes for many, many years, you've got to really build those feet muscles very slowly. But I think it's a big mistake to shove your feet into shoes and all day long.
It would be the equivalent of us wearing mittens.
Pretty much.
Right.
It just makes no sense. And, for people with kids and such, they should probably try to keep structured shoes off the kids' feet as absolutely long as possible.
I like that a lot. And the Native Americans said that they could remember paths with their feet just by the feel of it.
You really truly do build a lot of sensitivity in the feet, and you can feel everything. And people really worry about injuring themselves and such, but I found the exact opposite to be true. Now, that being said, if you're running in really rough territory with sharp rocks and stones and roots and such sticking up, there is a reason why man universally invented shoes across the globe. You want some form of protection, obviously, but it doesn't have to be 22 centimeters of rubber between you and the earth. You're just depriving yourself of one of your keen senses. It'd be it's like people walking around with earphones in all the time. You just can't really hear what's going on in the environment and so forth.
There's a lot of tangents I can go off on, especially with shoes. I train so many beginners in kickboxing, so a lot of times they will twist their ankles because there's just so much rubber that they don't understand where their foot is placed. And I love bare feet for kickboxing or minimalistic shoes because you will slow down your foot. You'll feel that placement, and you're likely to not get injured so much. I have a couple series of questions, Steve, and this one comes from one of our viewers, and I thought it was a fascinating question. Exactly, you've been on the cutting edge of so many trends that are commonplace now, and I started actually with bodybuilders, so the methodology was contrasting, especially kettlebells in the 90s would be considered dangerous. I don't think they would endorse that at all back when I was starting, but kettlebells, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, natural movements, range and mobility. What is your evaluation process when you come across one of these new trends or ideas?
Well, once again, I have a lot of experience to draw on because I started working out when I was 10 years old.
Yes.
So, having that vast amount of experience and trying many different ideas and various types of strength training protocols over the years, I'm in a pretty good position to be able to evaluate, at least for myself. And first, does it sound reasonable? When you first hear about claims being made, sometimes claims are pretty outlandish. And, if it sounds too good to be true, it almost always is.
Well, the claim that Pilates makes you taller definitely worked for me because I'm about 5'6" now. No, but you remember those claims, and we were going to get into every crazy fitness concept that comes around makes crazy claims, and people jump all over it. It must be incredibly frustrating.
Well, yeah, it is, and a lot of times too. Let's take one instance. I've been an outspoken critic of CrossFit because to me there seems a rhyme or reason to it. They talk about being prepared for anything. In truth, they're not prepared for anything at all, man. They really aren't. You don't spend enough time working on any one particular aspect to ever become good at anything. And the way they smash themselves in the gym with improper mouth breathing, like I call it panic breathing,
yes.
High repetition Olympic lifts, this type of stuff, it's just kind of crazy making for me because I just see it as just being really, really injurious and damaging to a person's health overall.
I couldn't agree with you more, and I'm sure you were doing CrossFit style before the term was claimed.
Well, I'm not against cross training.
Yeah,
it's a whole different category.
And you use it to strengthen for your athletic events.
Sure. I always wanted to be able to just go out and run, 5 or 6 miles, somewhat effortlessly. Maybe not fast, but just to be able to do it.
Yes.
Without expending too much effort. I always wanted to be able to jump in the water and be able to swim a half mile minimum. I've always wanted to just be able to go out, even now at 61, just climb a trail. I feel like it. I mean, that's a form of cross training. And yeah, I mean, these are skillular kind of things, and if you want to get really good at it, you got to practice it, obviously. But I mean, for me, I just always wanted to be able to go out and just have fun and use my body and do things and not be impaired. So my training is of a general nature. General training, which increases muscular strength and muscular endurance, it should also increase mobility and help make you resistant to injury. Mm-hmm. So if your training isn't doing those things, well then you're not training properly. If you're getting hurt in training, you're simply not training right. Training should prevent injuries, not cause injuries. Now, I'm not talking about jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, of course.
I'm not talking about kickboxing. These are sports. Those are recreations. When you sign on for a combat martial art, you expect to get hurt. Mm-hmm. If you're playing rugby or Australian rules football or NCAA or NFL football, you're going to get hurt, man. That's all part of the game. But I'm talking about general training in the gym. If you're, tearing your pec or your biceps tearing off your arm and rolling up into your shoulder, or you're blowing your back out doing deadlifts or power cleans, well, then you're obviously not training properly. You're training in a very dangerous way. And that type of training is something I've been against forever.
I love that. I love that you're saying that, because it's refreshing. I've come to see that in myself. I don't want my clients to be hobbled. I know a lot of ultra marathon runners that are having hip problems and knee problems and doing triathlon. They're maybe not set up for it. I know people that have torn their Achilles twice because they want to be that ultra marathon runner. And I guess it is a sport, but in essence, you need this body for a long period of time. So it's important to use your training to make sure you don't get injured.
Well, let's put it this way. No one ever said competitive sports is healthy. If anything, it's probably life-shortening. People do it because they enjoy it. I mean, living a long life and never having done anything doesn't make much sense to me either. Sometimes better to have a short, glorious life and go out in a blaze of glory. But that being said, people should at least be aware of the ramifications of what they're doing, be conscious of what they're doing. And training and proper training or whatever is really confused with recreation.
Yes. Training
or exercise and recreation is a huge confusion. But basically, there's a 5-point definition for exercise, and that's what I said. Increased strength, increased muscular endurance, increased cardiorespiratory capacity, increased mobility, and non-susceptibility to injury. And the only activity that meets that 5-point definition is pretty much strength training.
Okay.
Strength training could be your body weight, could be barbells, could be dumbbells, could be kettlebells. It could be any type of strength training. But that's the only one that actually meets the 5-point definition of exercise. Everything else is recreation. There may be a training effect, but it's always lacking one of those 5 points. That's not to say you shouldn't do it, but just realize that playing tennis or playing basketball or, going out and maybe playing ice hockey with the guys at the local rink, that does not replace general training. You still got to get in there at least a minimum of once a week, better even twice a week if you're playing a lot of sports. If you're not playing any sports at all, you can weight training even up to 3 times a week, I find, without overtraining too much. But usually if you're doing a lot of, intense recreational type sports and activities, you're probably better off just training twice a week at most. More than that, you're going to get burned out and get really tired and overtrained.
Yeah, this brings a ton of questions, because I feel I teach classes. Tonight I'm teaching 4 classes in a row, and days I'll feel overtrained. I'll feel extremely sore. Are you getting that, or do you have particular methods to reduce the soreness, the fatigue levels throughout the week?
Well, I've always been a little bit of an extremist my whole life. And I always went in for those, pretty rambunctious type of sports. And it takes its toll. But as I got older, especially when I hit my 40s, I started listening to my body more and more and more. And I stopped pushing myself so hard all the time. I used to really drive myself to the point of really being pretty exhausted. and you really start to suffer after a while. You get the adrenal burnout, and there's a lot of symptoms of overtraining. One of them is elevated resting heart rate in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
I started monitoring my morning resting heart rate. The only true resting heart rate is in bed in the morning.
Okay.
And you take it for a week, and then we're assuming you're not already overtrained.
Yeah.
Okay. We're assuming you're not already overtrained. And you get a baseline. You take it every morning for a week, and then you add all the numbers up and divide by 7. So now you have your average morning resting heart rate. And the only true resting heart rate is when you're in bed, when you first wake up. So you take the heart rate the first thing in the morning. If your pulse is elevated more than 5 beats above normal, you shouldn't be working out that day. Your body's telling you something.
Yeah.
You're having a lot of systemic fatigue. So just take it easy. Do mobility work. Maybe some yin yoga, walking with breath work. I'm really big into the Russian breathing ladders when I walk, and do something gentle. Let your body rest instead of just pounding yourself and driving yourself.
Okay.
A lot of people, they use exercise as like a form of stimulation.
Mm-hmm.
They get that like over-adrenalization from the training, but it ultimately makes them even tireder and more stressed. Even though it feels temporarily like they've relieved the stress, sometimes what they've actually done is they've numbed themselves and made themselves so numb they don't feel anything. But ultimately, they become even more stressed by not listening to their body. They'd be better off just resting and allowing their body to recuperate and, not just recuperate, but hopefully super compensate and recover at a higher level of conditioning than before. But that takes time. And as you get older, it takes even more time. But what a lot of people don't understand is the more fit you become, the longer it takes. A really strong, fit individual should train much less than a beginner. A guy like yourself, for example, you're able to push yourself really hard and really make great inroads into your systemic recovery because you have the mentality and you also have the muscle mass to push yourself much harder than, let's say, somebody just starting out. So for you, it might take 2 or 3 times longer to recover from a really, really hard workout than, let's say, a beginner. So that everyone thinks it's the reverse, that as you get more advanced, you need to do more and more and more. That's not true at all.
Oh, that's fascinating. And Steve, I want to jump into even questions, hypothetical questions. All of that is fantastic. I really appreciate you saying that because sometimes people, I have to back off on training, and people want you to keep on pushing, but your body's just completely broken down.
I call it the Dan Gable syndrome. I was an NCAA Division I college wrestler back in the day.
Yeah,
I wrestled all through junior high and high school.
Actually.
And Dan Gable was like a year ahead of me in college, and he kind of set the standard for training at that time, which was insane, basically, because no one could keep up with that guy. But unfortunately, as much as I respected him and his wrestling, he's pretty much destroyed his body.
Yeah.
He had like double hip replacement, and the poor guy can probably hardly move. He's in terrible pain, really hobbled. But I've seen this happen time and time and time again.
Stuff out. I mean, well, you work with so many athletes, they have to be beaten down to the point where they are just, oh man, I forget seeing that water. Is that
Gerolsteiner?
Sparkling?
It's one of my favorites when I'm in Germany.
Yes.
Good stuff.
And travel is important, Steve, because when you travel, you probably pick up so many ideas from the way they eat, from the way they move. You go to a country like Costa Rica, climbing a tree is pretty common. Every local can climb trees. I've had videos, they're just climbing trees, doing sit-ups. As a small child, they're encouraged. And in America, I don't think that's possible.
When I was in Tahiti, there was guys like, climbing trees like effortlessly, to get coconuts and such.
Yeah.
And these are, I didn't know how old these guys were, but, they weren't kids. Yeah, they're guys well over 40, and they were just scrambling right up those trees, knocking those coconuts down. It's really interesting to watch. But, the standard of fitness in the United States, despite the fact that there are a lot of gyms and it seems like a lot of people working out, in truth, probably less than 14% of the population is actually training regularly in the state.
I feel like we have a big merge of very athletic individuals, and then we have so many people that are just completely going down. And I wanted to bring it to marketing because I think marketing is killing the American people. they can't stop being influenced by people that are, you say, let's take Dr. Oz. If Dr. Oz says you just need to take psyllium husk and you don't have to worry about what you're eating and you're going to get lean, it's a miracle because he's a nice guy. Americans say that's okay, and then they're down that path. I've done a lot of work with, and I know your diet's based on, your training a lot, but fats being actually an essential part of your diet, good fats, and reducing carbohydrates could be beneficial for most Americans. Do you have any thoughts on the American food and the way where they're being told to eat rather than the way they should eat?
Well, there's so many different diets that human beings seem to thrive on.
Mm-hmm.
There was a guy by the name of Weston Price that, at the turn of the last century, he went pretty much all over the world studying indigenous peoples known for their health. At that time, you could still find indigenous peoples
Yes.
that were pretty much untainted and not influenced by modern civilization. And he looked at everything from the Inuits, to the South Pacific, the Polynesians, and quite a few European people. And I came to the conclusion that the human body is very adaptable and can adapt quite healthfully to any number of diets. And macronutrients can be vary greatly. The Inuits were almost all pure protein and fat, whereas you had some Indian groups that he studied that were pretty much almost all carbohydrate. There was this one group that was pretty much their predominant staple was sweet potatoes. They were getting like 85% of their food in carbohydrate, yet they were incredibly lean, healthy. The people he was most impressed with was the South Sea Islanders, the Polynesians. He thought they were one of the most magnificent groups of people he had studied. And they were eating a lot of taro root, which is a pretty high carbohydrate starch, along with a lot of coconut and fish and so forth. But the point is, if you're not active, it doesn't matter what you eat.
Yeah.
Activity is the key. And not eating a lot. Whatever you're eating, don't eat a lot. And unfortunately in the U.S., because of the food industry, everything is so over-processed for storage. I mean, I understand for shelf life and for storage and so forth, but it also makes the food incredibly concentrated and delicious. And when you have delicious tasting foods like this, you want to eat more because, I mean, as a race, it's hardwired in our DNA to lay down a very rapid layer of body fat. I mean, you can get really fat really quick. It was all part of our survival mechanism in ancient times when we didn't know when we might get the next meal. So being able to lay down a quick layer of body fat was really necessary to our survival. Unfortunately, the same genetics work greatly against us. But it's really hardwired in our brains to want to overeat and be very lazy.
Yes.
That's how we survive. So it's really, really important to recognize this, that yes, working out is somewhat unnatural. Most people don't really want to do it, but you got to make yourself do it. And of course, you can learn to enjoy it, obviously. And then just realize just how easily you can get fat. And, I follow a rule called the 80% rule. It's actually one of the longest living people on earth, the Okinawans. They never eat to their full. They always leave the table feeling like they would like to have eaten a little bit more, a little unsatisfied, a little hungry, and they never eat more than 80% capacity. So I try to follow that rule as much as I can. That way you assure yourself of not overdoing it, because it's pretty easy to wing out, especially in when you travel as much as I do, and you're going to restaurants, and restaurants are known to use lots of salt and. The food is very tasty, and they make it that way, so they get a repeat customer.
Sure, of course.
So, you got to really know how to cut it off, so to speak. But that took me a while, to learn how to eat responsibly. And just by understanding the mechanism, just understanding is like the first step to correction, just being aware.
Sure.
Awareness.
And I think they're in a cycle, especially you mentioned they're processing foods and fructose from, it's been explained to me by Gary Taubes. I don't know if you're familiar with Gary Taubes. He wrote Good Calories, Bad Calories, which is not a diet book. His book before that was about the Hadron Collider. He's an investigative journalist. For the last 100 years, he documented all the different diets, And anything containing fructose in nature is non-toxic to humans. So when we taste fructose, it's incredibly rewarding to our brain. So if you load food up with fructose, they actually get kind of high from it. Or they do get high from it. I mean, I feel great when I eat a bunch of fructose. And I think they're in that never-ending cycle. But I had a question, say, or hypothetical situation. Say Ron Paul gets elected as president and he says, we need a fitness, a health czar, and it's going to be Steve Maxwell. And he can do whatever he wants. He can tear down the food pyramid. He could restructure society. Do you ever think about things like that? How could we make society more fun, more active, and really help these individuals out there that are, in my opinion, suffering?
I'm not so sure you can help people, to tell the truth, Mike. You pretty much have to be an example.
Okay.
And just lead through your own actions. But trying to actively going out and helping, I find that you just meet with a lot of resistance. People have to kind of come on their own accord. You know, the old, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
Sure.
And it's you just have to show through your own actions. And hopefully people say, hey, maybe that helps them become more aware and to wake up a little bit. On the same subject, I wanted to mention, I had discovered food combining many years ago, back in the late 60s, early 70s. I was experimenting. And I found that it's a really good way to help control your urge to overeat. And I basically divide my meals really simply. I have a fruit-based meal, with fresh raw fruits. I have a starch-based meal. It could be grains or potatoes or something along those lines. And I have a protein-based meal. And that could be fish, eggs, chicken, occasionally cheese or something, usually with a raw vegetable salad or sometimes cooked. And when you eat real simple meals with not much more than 3 things per meal, the temptation to overeat is way less. If you just had a baked potato, chances are you're not going to overeat potato. You're going to get full and you're going to feel satisfied. You have that with a nice raw vegetable salad, man, you're going to feel quite good. And if you have just a nice piece of chicken, maybe a half a chicken or whatever for a guy your size and so forth, and you have that with a nice leaf green vegetable salad and maybe some cooked spinach or some steamed broccoli, you're not going to overeat. You're going to your satiety levels are going to be hit real quick, because when you're mixing all this different stuff together, it really overstimulates the taste buds, and yes, you just want to eat and eat and eat and eat. But when you eat very, very simple meals, sometimes I only have like a mono diet for a while. Wow. I'll actually just eat one thing, and you don't overeat. I mean, your satiety levels are reached very quickly, and you feel good. And of course, I rotate the foods.
Sure. I mean, you need to do that. I appreciate that. And one quick question: do you eat breakfast or do you fast?
I push it back a little bit.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of reading on my own over the years. I've probably have read at least 200 books on nutrition,
of course,
from all sorts of sources. But I've been very strongly influenced by the yogic system of health, the Ayurvedic.
Of course. And
the ancient yogis always claimed that the early morning hours, your body is very busy getting rid of metabolic waste from the previous day, and if the waste, the detoxification process is at its height in the early morning hours, right up to about 10 o'clock. And if you have a heavy breakfast, you completely disrupt the detoxification, the natural detoxification process in the body. So if I do have a breakfast, it's very light. But usually I push it back to at least 10 o'clock.
Of course. I'm the same.
If I get up at 4 a.m., it might be at 9. If I get up a little bit later, it could be like as late as 11. So, some point between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m., I'll have the first meal of the day.
That brings me to another point. As far as the morning, your rituals, do you have visualization rituals? Do you have meditation rituals? Do you incorporate that into your training at all? Is that important?
I do. I've been using the healing codes for the last year with great effect. I would encourage the readers to go research it. It's called the Healing Code. Pretty fascinating stuff. And it's based on vibrational medicine. And it's pretty deep. But yeah, I'll do various rituals and visualizations. I'm a real fan of Neville Goddard, who was like one of the original. There was that whole movement in the United States and Europe called the New Thought from the late 1800s up. I've been a real fan of a lot of these guys. Neville was like one of the main figures in the New Thought movement, and I like his whole visualization process. So I'll do that type of prayer, meditation, and visualization. I think it's really important to express gratitude. It's pretty well known fact with many spiritual teachers, and spirituality being dependent from religion. But gratitude, most people do not express enough gratitude, being really happy with what you have. You certainly can't improve your situation in life or advance to anything better as long as you remain dissatisfied. You have to feel great gratitude for what it is. Even if your life is really terrible, you've got to find those things that you are grateful for. By acknowledging that gratitude, then and only then can you actually improve your situation and move to something better. And that's something that took me a while to figure out. But once I understood the role of gratitude, it changed my lifestyle dramatically. I got into a flow where things pretty much just happen for me almost effortlessly. I'll just start to visualize and think, I need this or I need that, or boom, it just appears seemingly out of nowhere. But in reality, you're putting out those mental vibes. It's kind of like putting in a mental order to the universe. You're ordering, and the orders are the way you think. Your thought process. So whatever you're getting in your life, it's your thoughts that are attracting it. So if you want something better than what you got to control that thought process, and you got to control your mind and your thinking and your thoughts. And one of the ways that you can do that is by being very grateful and practicing some form of gratitude every single day.
Yeah, since I struggle with that, mainly, being agnostic, I was very Catholic, and you start questioning it, and then you get into this path a lot of atheists get into, where it's just, what is the purpose of it all at all? And you just don't feel grateful, which you could be doing incredible things most people would appreciate, but you just don't feel good. And I'm so glad that you said that. It brings me to a question a viewer.
Well, it transcends belief in any type of religion or anything.
Yes.
And you could be anything from a Buddhist to a Catholic to a Hindu to, Islam. Doesn't matter. Gratitude transcends all that. You could be agnostic and still feel gratitude for the things that you have, because it actually is based on quantum physics. What you're putting out, the energy you put out, is the energy you get back. It can actually be explained by modern science. So, everyone vibrates at a certain level, a certain vibratory pattern, and that vibratory pattern is set by your thinking, because your thinking adjusts your emotions and your mood. So, I've often experienced being maybe in a sort of tired state, and maybe my mood would be down, my vibratory pattern's down. You attract things of a lower order, a lower nature. You attract negative situations that come up. But when you're feeling pretty good and fairly energetic, and you've had good sleep, and you're vibrating at a higher level, then you attract much better things. Sometimes seemingly out of nowhere, people do a kindness for you, or there's just really good things happen. It's kind of like that. Accidents, for example. I don't believe in accidents. I don't believe in luck. You make your own luck. Mm-hmm. Nothing happens by accident. Everything happens exactly the way it should happen. Everything that's ever happened to me should have happened to me in exactly the way it should have happened. So if I'm vibrating at like an action is vibrating at a really, really low level, and if I'm vibrating at a low level, and I'm vibrating at the same level as, let's say, an accident or some type of mishap, well, then I'm going to attract that. We're going to collide at some point. That's just basic quantum physics.
Yeah.
So, it doesn't have to have religious overtones per se, for whatever. I guess if there is such a thing as a God, that's the process that God would work through.
What is our purpose in this world at all, Steve? Do you ever think about why are we here? What are we doing?
Well, I have a pretty strong belief system. I do believe that souls, there's other planes of existence besides this one, and this is the lowest level of existence there is right here. And the reason our souls were ushered into this particular earth plane was for lessons to be learned. So we're here to learn soul lessons so that we can elevate ourselves and leave this particular plane to a higher plane. And according to the yogis, there's 7 planes of existence. The highest plane being love. Here on earth, it's basically security and materialism-based consciousness. But each plane, you get to a higher level of consciousness. So eventually, you reach a point where you no longer need the material or physical body, and you reside as a conscious entity without physical form, a thought form. As Einstein said, matter can neither be created nor destroyed. And the highest form of matter on this planet is the human being, higher than all animals, all plants. So whatever makes you, and me, that particular energy, which transcends our name, it transcends what we do for a living, or even the way we look, or whatever, that energy cannot be destroyed. That energy is forever, it's permanent. It just takes a different form. But I do believe that people that don't learn the particular lessons they need to get off the merry-go-round of being earthbound, they come back time after time after time, like a merry-go-round. And I think the goal of every human is to leave this earth, this earthly plane, to a higher form of existence. And what that is, I don't know. I've read an awful lot of spiritual people that have talked about it. But I mean, for sure, I can see where, this is not reality. This is more like a dream that we're all in, like the dreamlike nature of the world. You pretty much dream everything that's happening to you. You basically order it up through your thought process. So I always tell people, if you don't like the dream you're in, just dream a new dream. It sounds trite, but it is possible. You can do that, man.
Yeah.
You can definitely dream a new dream. I've certainly reinvented myself more than once.
Yeah, I would say so. This is really, really helpful for me. I'm sure everybody else is going to benefit greatly from that as well.
But they might think I'm a nut too. So.
Well, I'm big into Deepak Chopra, Wayne Dyer. I'm always
sure. Those guys are great, man.
I'm always looking to help people and feel better. And I question what we're doing here, and that is. It's a great, even if they don't believe it, it will enhance the earth. It will enhance people's lives if they have that method or a belief system. Is there any, particular books, movies, music that inspires you? Who inspires Steve Maxwell?
Well, I'm inspired all the time. One of the people that really inspired me was this fellow by the name of Yogananda. I thought he was really an amazing guy. Everyone tends to think of yoga as the stretch classes.
Sure.
But I mean, that's just such an insignificant part of yoga. Yoga is so much more. It's really about the mind and some of the things we were just talking about. And Yogananda, I mean, he wasn't one of these guys that was showing off and putting his feet behind his head and doing all sorts of weird contortionism and such. But if you read some of his books and his writings, it was pretty inspirational. Pretty amazing guy. Another guy that I thought was pretty amazing, Ernest Holmes, is one of the forerunners of the New Thought movement, and he wrote this fantastic book called The Science of Mind, in which he describes the way the human mind works and the way we think and how it affects our environment. I thought that was quite a good book. And I guess maybe the third book would be, it was actually a Buddhist by the name of Eckhart Tolle.
Oh.
He wrote a book, The Power of Now, or... he wrote
The Power of Now. What else? I've read all
these
books.
I'm talking about. Yeah, he had a pretty amazing influence. I had read all 3 of his books, and I listened to all of his CDs. don't know what the audience knows, but I've been kind of a minimalist for a long time. After my divorce around 2005, I moved into a camper van, and I lived in my van for 3 years. And I drove coast to coast in the United States, from coast to coast, 8 times. But during those long drives across the open desert, I would put Eckhart Tolle in and listen to some of his lectures, and it was very soothing, very nice. I really felt pretty close to nature. Yeah. It was a real kick-ass van too.
Yeah. What kind of van was it?
It was called the Dodge Sprinter Westphalia. They can Google it. Dodge Sprinter Westphalia. It's actually a German-made vehicle, and wow, it was kind of like one of those little FBI surveillance vans. I mean, it was just had everything in there, man. The Swiss Army knife of camper vans. But then it started traveling so much. I says, "What am I going to do with this thing? I can't just leave it sit around because mice and stuff get in and chew all the wires up, and the vehicle would be just worth nothing." So I finally decided, what, I'm traveling. I don't even sit for months at a time. I just sold it. I actually sold it on Craigslist when I was in Germany last year.
I mean,
the internet's amazing. Yeah. I actually sold a vehicle and mailed the guy the key, and he went up and he got it out of the storage unit, and it was his. He bought it actually sight unseen, interestingly enough.
Well, I would trust Steve Maxwell if he told me the van was out there. And the internet and technology is fantastic, because 20 years ago we wouldn't be able to have this conversation. When I was younger.
Yeah, here I am in Germany, like thousands of miles from where you're at. I find that, like, a lot of people ask me all the time, like, well, I'd like to travel a little bit more, or, I really feel stuck. And anyone can pretty much do what I do. You just got to have a way of making money. I call it a freedom business. I do online personal training, fat loss programs, lifestyle programs, and so forth. Try to help guide people to a better life and a healthier life, and feeling more satisfied within themselves. And so that brings me a fairly nice little bit of income. And then, of course, I have my online videos and so forth that I sell. And then the seminars that I do is more for fun. It's just like kind of like icing on the cake. They pay for for example, I'm in Germany, I did 3 seminars. That pretty much pays for my hotel and my food and my travel. Plus I make a little bit on the side. But then everything else is just pure profit from the videos and so you need a freedom business. And there's so many things you can do, buying and selling over the internet. You can bank over the internet. Oh, I even pay the government my taxes. Man, and I tell you, they don't wait at all. You put the money in the bank, you go online to the Internal Revenue Service, you let them know the money's there, boom, man, that is gone within hours.
There's no delay.
Man, it's like yoink, it's gone, man. But yeah, you can do everything on the internet these days. Every single thing.
Can I point out how I love DVDs, but I don't have a DVD player. Now you have instant downloads for your videos.
Oh, I know, and that's the greatest. You don't even need a player or anything these days, nor do you need some type of disc that you need to carry around or store. You can just store it right on your laptop. It's amazing.
A new feature YouTube is going to be releasing is subscription-based, so we would be able to sign up for your higher tier Steve Maxwell YouTube channel and would pay $20, $30 a month. Which makes it super simple. Before it was more complicated. So if you ever do anything like that in the future,
thanks for the heads up, because I don't consider myself real tech savvy. Thank God I have some people around me that really know what's going on. I have a fantastic webmaster, and of course,
yes.
I have an assistant, my girlfriend, who travels with me as my companion. And boy, what a fun she was. Try finding a woman that travels with one bag. We both have one bag, big, and her bag's lighter than mine, and she loves traveling, and she's a minimalist too, and thank God she makes a lot of my hotel arrangements and flight and train reservations, and sets up the seminars and so forth. So I mean, she's pretty much indispensable to what I do.
Well, I'm sure if you ever put it out to the Rogan Army, if you ever need anything, you just mention it. Those guys are gonna take care of you. I had some quick fire topics or words I want to throw at you, Steve, and see exactly what you thought about them. So, quick.
Fire away, man.
Supplements.
Bogus, waste of money.
Okay.
It's unneeded. No animal on the planet needs supplements. If you think about it, nature provided the perfect diet. Think about the gorilla, how amazingly big and strong and powerful, and he's just eating pretty much bamboo shoots and leaves and fruit. Look at an elephant, he's eating grass. I mean, nature provided the perfect diet for each species. Well, for sure, we're no different. What makes human beings think that, we, the highest order of animal on the planet, wouldn't it make sense that nature also would provide everything that we would need from our food? The problem is people just won't eat it.
Yeah.
But if you do, there's no reason in the world to be taking supplements. Zero.
Well, TRT.
I don't know what that is.
That is the it's basically testosterone. The UFC.
Oh, testosterone replacement therapy. Yeah, well, that's another slippery slope. Once you start with that, you cannot stop. Your own testicles will just shut down production, and it's irreversible. Especially as you get, my age. There's plenty of natural ways that you can boost your testosterone through exercise and just a good diet. One of the most important things is just don't get fat, especially gut fat. If you have a lot of internal visceral fat, that actually turns on the feminizing hormones. So you got to get rid of the belly fat and that internal fat on the internal organs, and just intense training, at least once a week, high intensity interval type training. It could be sprints, but it could be something like kettlebell swings. It could even be jump rope. I mean, it could be, sprints in the swimming pool. I mean, whatever you fancy, but it got to be really hard, short, brief, and really tax you. And boy, I'll tell you, that will really bring your hormonal profiles up. You could even do like a circuit weight training, just go from exercise to exercise with zero reps and really push yourself to the limit on each exercise. And that is one of the finest ways to keep your testosterone really, really strong.
Adderall, Ritalin. Do you know what these are? These are.
Oh yeah, sure. That's the psychiatrists are just
doling out
like candy, man. Really, really harmful stuff, man. It really can really screw with your brain chemistry and so forth. And I did experiment somewhat with that, both Adderall and Ritalin at one point. I had a client that got it from his doctor. And I said, hey, give me one of those things. I just want to try it. So he gave me like a couple. And boy, I'll tell you, it just made me feel horrible. I mean, you would get pretty jazzed up, and it would definitely adrenalize you and so forth. But man, the crash when you came down off this stuff was horrible. Wow. And it made me just really anxious, worse than any kind of coffee jag I ever had. The Adderall wasn't quite as bad, but I also found terrible crashes and exhaustion, plus you get immune to it really quick, and you just want more and more. I mean, it's an amphetamine salt.
Sure.
I also found a really weird burning sensation in my urethra when I urinate, and I also found that both Ritalin and Adderall, for some reason, delayed ejaculation, but in a bad way. It's almost like I couldn't orgasm. It was difficult. It did something to my prostate and my urethra and caused an irritation, and I just found it just intolerable.
Well, yeah, I think they should just, if people are going to take it, they should just let them chew cocoa leaves from below.
Well, sure, why not? What do they call it, cats or whatever, like they do in Africa? Some of the Somalia, right? They chew the cat leaves. It's like a form of stimulant, kind of like amphetamine.
In Bolivia, I mean, coca leaves. Even the president chews it. The altitude is so high, and but it's such a small dose when you chew a leaf compared to if you're extracting it. And I guess that ejaculation problem is more common with the next question, which is antidepressants.
Oh yeah, well sure. I know this one guy, man, this poor guy. He was taking testosterone replacement, but he was also depressed. So then he had to take what's the name of the little blue pills that the guys take?
It's all off. Oh no, Viagra.
Viagra. Okay, then in order to have sex, he had to take Viagra. I mean, it was just this huge circle, this vicious circle. One thing would make him have to use another drug, which would force him to use another drug. And the poor guy, he was just really just a walking mess with all this stuff. There's natural ways that you can do it. And what people don't understand that if you're eating a shitty diet and you're not training, there's no amount of drug therapy in the world that is going to improve your situation in this life.
Yes.
Just no way. And most of these drugs are quite harmful.
And most of the educated
They're not free lunch.
most of the educated doctors I speak with, they'll tell you, you can't abdicate your health to your doctor. You can't say, well, my doctor said it's fine, because this might not be fine, because they just see that problem and they'll put you on 5 or 6 medications when it's really going to be harmful. Who knows what the effects are going to be in 10, 20 years, which I worry about.
Well, part of the problem is the big pharmaceutical companies, they're in it to make money. And they pretty much control the American Medical Association and most doctors. And a lot of people don't know that they actually pay doctors bonus money to push certain drugs on their patients.
Yeah, they should.
It's really important to ask when a doctor is trying to get you to take a particular drug. Say, are you being paid? Are you getting money from the pharmaceutical industry to give this to your patients? And by law, they're supposed to tell you, but that's usually the case.
Just the idea that they would be marketing medications directly to the public in commercials and magazines is insanity. I'm a client, or I'm a patient. Why would I be recommending the medication to the doctors? But they put them in such a financial squeeze after medical school. These doctors are just trying to make ends meet. That's why we need a health czar. Moving on, gum, which I feel like people don't think it's a big deal, but all that either sugar or artificial sweetener being chewed all day, is that going to mess up your digestive process?
Because of the sugar, the artificial stuff so much, it's because of the act of chewing and so forth, your body's expecting food. So you're putting yourself in a perpetual state of digestion. So your body's producing these digestive enzymes, and yeah, it does indeed ruin the digestion. You're just one continuous digestion. So yeah, gum chewing is a real filthy habit that people should just not do. Or if you do chew it, chew something like xylitol gum or something, and then just spit it out.
Yeah.
Maybe after a meal, like brushing the teeth. But I know some people that just chew constantly all day long. But it's hard in the digestion. Your body's actually going through the process as if it's receiving food.
Crunches. Do you know what I mean by that?
Oh yeah, the abdominal exercise.
This is I deal with so many people on a daily basis. If I don't, I'm constantly trying to brainwash them back out of believing that if they do crunches, they're going to lose 50 pounds from their stomach. Can you just dispel this myth for us?
Well, it's just one of those things that just has stayed around for so long. But, it's really interesting because I've never seen anyone ever get any kind of results from doing crunches. In the 51 years I've been training, and I've seen hundreds, if not thousands of people, I have never saw one person get any results from doing crunches in any way. And I've seen some people actually hurt themselves, just by overdoing it.
Yeah,
overdeveloping their abdominal muscles. And of course, it's really hard to actually develop much strength from doing a crunch. But, just an overuse injury, and, they do nothing for the back.
The Thigh Master is another one. I always relate. I'm like, Suzanne Summers wasn't a mess. She was she was a model, and then she endorsed the Thigh Master, but people see the Thigh Master, they're buying it up. I mean, it's sold billions.
Is that still out there, that thing, man? I didn't even know.
What they do is they move it into the South American markets. So the stim machines for the stomach, if you go down to South America, it's on all the commercials they're selling. They just move the marketing down. It's pretty disturbing. What were the name of the shoes? You wear a different type of shoe, I've seen.
Yeah, I wear a lot of different brands on and off, but one of my favorite ones is a product of German engineering. It's called the Sole Runner, S-O-L-E, Sole Runner. And it's made in Germany. It's a product of German engineering. It's an unbelievable shoe. It's one of the thinnest soled shoes in the market. It's made out of the same kind of stuff that they use for Kevlar vests. Sure. And really super lightweight. It's great for packing. And another one I like is the Luna sandal by Barefoot Ted McDonough. He was one of those guys that Christopher McDougall wrote about in his book Born to Run.
Love the book.
And Ted was one of the characters in that book. He started his own Irachi company based on the design of the Tarahumara Indians, who basically run long distances as part of their culture, part of their religion. So this is a fabulous running sandal, and it's great for me because everything has to do double or even triple duty. So they're a great flip-flop, beach shoe. I can run in them, train in them. So that's one of my favorite shoes. And I like the what Merrell's doing with some of their shoes, zero drop, and also New Balance, the Minimus. They have some fabulous shoes. I have a pair of their Minimus trail shoes. Sometimes I have to do some pretty strenuous hikes over really super, super rough terrain, and it gives me just an edge to a foot protection. I can still feel the ground. I can still sense where everything is with my feet. But they're heavy enough to give me some decent protection from, thorns and really sharp, spiky rocks and roots and so forth. So those are the ones that I carry with me, pretty much. Those three.
They should probably sponsor you. On your travels, you should have sponsors. Maybe we'll set something up. Now we see. I've heard you say sitting is the new smoking. What about e-cigarettes? Are they the new smoking? Is this going to come back and bite everybody in the ass that's switching from smoking to e-cigarettes?
Probably. The main benefit is that you're not getting the secondhand smoke for the most part. I mean, you are a little bit because when people exhale in the same room, you're still breathing in the air that they've exhaled. So it's not completely, smoke-free. You're still breathing air that they breathed out. Because anytime you're in a room with other people, let's say in an airline or whatever, closed-in area, a bus, whatever, public area, you're using shared air. Mm-hmm. You're all breathing in the same air, and then you're exhaling. So I'm inhaling some of the molecules from the person next to me from their lungs, and they're inhaling molecules from my lungs. So if you have a bunch of people with those e-cigarettes, for sure you're still ingesting and inhaling some of the residue that they're breathing out. So it's not the panacea, okay, for sure. Better if people could just learn to get off that stuff, But it's still a step in the right direction.
Last one, cannabis. Oh, two more. I have cannabis and coffee. Any ideas? Talks about them.
Well, I never really did smoke marijuana. I tried it a few times when I was in college back in the 70s, early 70s. And it just always made me feel just kind of nauseous. And interestingly enough, I never got hungry. I always felt sick, like I didn't want to eat. And I just didn't like the way I felt. It gave me headaches and such. I think I might have just been really hypersensitive to it. And I tried it, half dozen times or so, and it was always pretty much the same experience. And I says, I just don't find this very enjoyable, fun. I'm not getting any of the stuff that people talk about. So I just quickly pushed that aside and decided not to do it anymore. Coffee I've had a love-hate affair with for a long time. I like coffee, but I like the taste of coffee. It doesn't like me very much. I am somewhat sensitive. I find that I get skin problems if I ingest too much coffee.
Interesting.
I think if you actually drink a really good coffee, a really good organic bean, and you prepare it right, it could probably have some benefit, perhaps. I don't think caffeine is a horrible thing if you use it responsibly and in small quantities. For sure, we know that caffeine enhances physical performance. Mm-hmm. Of course, if you use it habitually all the time, you're not going to get much of a boost in your performance. You're just, you're pretty much in Europe. But if you were to, let's say, go off for a week or two before an event, and then have some caffeine before the event, wow, you'd feel like you're on rocket fuel. Oh, yeah. It really stimulates. But the thing that people need to know, the coffee is not giving you energy. The energy is coming from your own body. Mm-hmm. The coffee is merely overstimulating your central nervous system to make you feel energized, so that the energy, you're still depleting yourself by drinking the coffee. It's not like you're getting some mystical, magical outside source of energy. You still have to pay the energy debt after it's over.
That's true.
And coffee is going to push you, and you're going to have a crash, and you're going to feel tired. And people that habitually just go for the coffee all the time, they start to run into some serious adrenal burnout, and they start to suffer some serious habits. But for sure, if you're just drinking a couple cups a day, you're not going to cause yourself any real serious problems. But I would definitely recommend getting the best organic coffee bean and preparing it in a real good way, the best possible water that you can, not like tap water or whatever. Okay. And you can coffee can actually be fairly okay, pretty benign actually.
Good. I don't want to keep you all day, so I'm guessing we're going to let you go in a second. Is there two things I always ask the interviewee to maybe if you were able to talk to your 20-year-old self or your 16-year-old self or a time where you were not secure about the future, what would you say to Steve Maxwell in 1968 or 1970? If you could...
Well, he probably wouldn't have listened. He's probably a hardhead. But I would say there's nothing to fear. There's no reason to be afraid. Everything that you'll ever need, it will be there when you need it to be. You just need to start to concentrate and control the way you think. I mean, I wish I would have started some of the thought process a little bit earlier. Would have saved me a lot of anxiety and a lot of angst. And maybe the other thing would be is you don't have to prove anything to anybody. And the third thing I would say, find something you love and do it to the best of your ability. Find something you're really passionate, that you really love in life, and then just do it to the best of your ability. And then finances and everything will always be there if you do it well. Doesn't matter what it is, but something you're really passionate about. And of course, I was lucky in that respect because I knew that when I was 12 years old, I wanted to be a physical education teacher or a physical educator. I actually did teach in the public school system for a few years, and I quickly realized that I preferred working with adults other than kids. And the school systems were too limiting. Mm-hmm. But so I was pretty lucky in that way. I kind of found my niche early, but I would say that to any young man. But there were times when I was kind of floundering around and looking at other things. But I always kept coming back to the thing I loved most, and that was the field of physical training and physical education and health education.
I'm definitely going to be you're doing a seminar in Linwood, New Jersey in October. I don't even know if you're familiar with you've got people out there you still have another German seminar coming up in Munich.
In Munich.
Right, which it's mobility and conditioning seminar, and then you're hitting the UK.
In the UK, yeah, both Edinburgh and a place just outside of London. And then I think, what is it? Is it Austin, Texas for Red Gear? It's a MMA Expo.
Oh, that's great.
And I'll be there. And then I believe it's back to Oslo, Norway from there.
Norway, huh?
But I'm going to go to LA, and I don't have this definite, but I believe I'm going to be with Joe again on the Joe Rogan podcast again after the Rev Gear thing. I'm hoping. I'd love to see Joe again, man.
Yeah, he's
an awesome guy, man. One of the real genuine people that I've met. I mean, despite his fame and accomplishments, and he's been, like in the Hollywood movies, and anyone that knows anything about the combat martial arts and fighting knows who Joe Rogan is. Plus, he's funny as hell. I don't know if you've ever seen his stand-up comedy.
Of course.
The guy is a really funny guy. Very cerebral act too. And then he can get pretty down there. He'll talk some real. Yeah, I mean, it's just such a cool mix.
We got to give it up to Joe even more than that, Steve. I mean, the guy he could have done nothing. He could be sitting at home.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Probably has royalties from Fear Factor, even other shows. He doesn't have to do anything, but he chooses to continuously educate this public and make this world. If anybody's going to move to the next level, I believe Joe Rogan should go from, how there's 7 levels. Maybe he should skip straight up to love after this.
For sure, man. Hey, look, if he ever ran for president, I'd vote.
I would too. He probably, honestly, he's changed my life, changed so many others' lives. That's why I knew, if he's bringing you on. So you're going to do the Rev Year, and then somewhere maybe in September you're going to be back on, you believe? I
believe it should be at the end of August.
Okay.
After that. And, one more thing about Joe. A lot of people that watch the UFC and so forth, I don't think they realize what a badass Joe himself is, man. He's really quite the athlete. He's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, killer submission wrestler, Wow, I watched him kicking the banana bag in his garage. Geez, the damn thing was bending in half. I mean, wow, the amount of power. My ribs are just hurting just watching him kick that bag. It was like, whoa, what an athlete this guy is.
Yeah, no, I pride myself on my spinning back kick, and Joe Rogan put a video out. As it's hard to do these kicks, but he's talking through the tutorial, and he hits this bag like a car.
Yeah, exactly, like a truck.
It's just amazing that he gets into this many things, goes this deep. And something always says, Musashi would say, is if you see the greatness in one area, you can start to add it to other things. So if he sees it in comedy, he could see it in martial arts, he can see it in pool, he could see it in fitness. So,
he's a bow hunter. He practices archery. He was showing me his new bow and arrow. Yeah, at his studio, he opens up the door and sets up a target out the back door, and then he shoots from the front room through the second room into these targets that he sets up. And he's damn good, man. I mean, he was just putting arrow after arrow in the bullseye.
Did you try it?
Yeah, I decided not to try it. I didn't want to make a fool of myself.
Shoot a hole in a wall. Do you ever hunt or anything, or do any?
I did at one point. I actually, when my son was, I wanted to have some type of ritual for him. Like we don't have a manhood ritual like they do in most societies. Okay. The closest thing we have is maybe the military service for young men, but there's no real passage from young boyhood into young manhood. So I decided to take my son on a hunt. And we went hunting wild boar up in Tioga County, Pennsylvania. Yeah. There was a wild game preserve. It was about 100 acres or 150 acres. It was pretty big tract of land. And it was stocked with all types of animals. And one of the things they had were these razorbacks, these boars that they brought in from the Florida Everglades in Georgia. They're considered pests down there because they just rip up the environment. So they were running around this vast game preserve, and we were hunting with pistols. I had a 45 caliber pistol, the old service pistol. Yeah. And we tracked these boars pretty much all day. They're pretty savvy, and they knew they were being hunted. And they were really elusive quarry. But finally we got one that thought he was hiding better than he was, and I slipped the pistol out of the holster and put it into Zach's hands. I had him take aim. He had been practicing, and he's a pretty good shot. Boom! He hits it, but we don't know where. And the thing jumps up and it's kind of shivering, and I'm thinking, okay, here, give me that pistol. And I just tried to put another one in there because I didn't know at that point. But apparently he had hit him perfect. He had hit him right in the chest, right in right through the lungs. But I put one right behind his ear, and then. The game preserve, they will bring, the guy helped us field dress it, and we took the boar to back on a front end loader, back to the barn where they dress the meat for you. And so Zach was watching, and he was like, oh, and I said, no, don't turn away. You watch this process. If you cannot stand to watch this boar being skinned and gutted and all the stuff, then you should become a vegan or a vegetarian. You should never eat meat, because this is the reality of life. If you can watch this, then you can still have a boar steak later. Okay, no problem. If you can't watch it, then you shouldn't be eating meat, because there's the meat wrapped up in the nice plastic wraps in the supermarket. People need to know what actually goes into the production of that meat, and if you can't deal with it, you probably shouldn't be eating it.
Yeah,
that's just my opinion. So for me, I'm a true carnivore. It didn't bother me one bit. Matter of fact, I was salivating. I wanted some of the. I wanted some boar stew, man. And believe me, we had probably 300 pounds of meat that we packed in coolers all the way back to Philly from Tioga County. Like quite a few hours, and we had it packed in dry ice. Then I put it in my freezer, man. We had boar steaks, boar stew, boar everything. Boar chitlins. I mean, just went on and on, but it sure was delicious.
Yeah, some of my Italian friends, they just eat the pork. They prepare the pork, they just eat it raw. I couldn't even believe it.
Okay. It's a little beyond what I would want. I still like to cook my meat.
Yeah, so, I highly recommend you cook it. It's just for everybody out there. And your son, and I had watched interviews where you said maybe you weren't the type of guy that should have children, but you got to be extremely excited about, you have Zach and you have a daughter.
Savannah, and then I had a daughter to an earlier marriage who's in her, let's see, what's Stephanie's like 44, I believe now. But, well, I wasn't definitely the kind of guy that was cut out for marriage. I probably shouldn't have been married, but see, that's what people did. You go to school and, you get married and buy the house and then you have kids. And I was kind of going on autopilot there, not really thinking about what I was doing. And, I just realized that I wasn't the kind of guy that could be domesticated. I was really it was kind of a wild card. I really felt quite trapped and like I wanted to move like I'm doing now. It was always this inner urge to rove and roam and kind of be a vagabond or and just go around adventuring. And you can't do that when you have a house and a mortgage and a wife and the kids. So I stuck in it for a long time, but I wasn't particularly happy. And I couldn't even figure out why I wasn't happy sometimes. And then I finally figured out, you know what, I'm just not cut out for this. And I didn't think I was a particularly good father. I was fun to be around. Mm-hmm. Kids loved being around me. We had a great time. I wasn't a tyrant or meanie or anything, I did have a lot of mood swings back in the day, but a lot of that was just kind of just that feeling of being trapped and so forth. And it certainly wasn't my ex-wife's fault. A lovely woman, beautiful woman. It was just, I was just the kind of guy that should have never been in that type of domestic situation. I never questioned the whole concept of getting married. And I think a lot of young guys and a lot of young women should really question what their motives are, especially having kids. You're bringing an elevated soul down into the earth plane. Why would you want to do that? That's some serious karma that you're dealing with. And what makes anyone actually think that they're cut out to be a decent parent? My own parents, God bless them, they didn't know any better, but they weren't particularly good role models. They were terrible role models, actually. So I didn't have a good model to be a parent. There's no manual. Most people are pretty shitty parents. They either mollycoddle the children and overindulge them, overprotect them, or they're somewhat abusive or aloof. I think in some ways you're almost better off being a little aloof than mollycoddling and so forth. But what makes people think that they're qualified to be a parent and usher in this soul into this world? They should ask themselves these questions. If they can't give a clear-cut answer, they should really think twice or even three times before having a kid. And, the divorce rate is at an all-time high. Some countries more than others. Like the UK and Finland, I think, lead the world in divorces. But the United States is right up there. There's a good chance for a woman that she's going to be a single parent. Because having kids really puts a stress on a relationship. And, it's pretty common for men to cheat on their wives. Once you take that beautiful girl that you married, you basically turn her into a mother. Mothers are not particularly sexy. And then the sex goes.
This Saturday interview, my wife is gonna kill you.
The sex goes out of it.
Just kidding.
And,
Yeah, well, that was another important.
I'm not saying that people shouldn't be parents. I'm just saying you need to ask yourself these questions before you decide. But if you can't give a satisfactory answer, if a woman's not willing to be a single parent, well, then she might want to really consider. Because no matter how good the relationship might be now, once you have a kid, the dynamics change drastically. That's not to say people haven't had kids and they haven't been happy, but I don't know about you. I don't know too many good marriages. I don't think people are doing marriage well anymore. It's not like the old days where people had clear-cut roles that they fulfilled. Nowadays, it's really confusing for people. And I haven't seen anyone do marriage well. And most people do it pretty badly, in my opinion. And I think that they should really question their motives. I think it's a little egotistical, a little arrogant, bringing babies into the world. It's not anything remarkable. It's not some amazing thing. Every cat, rat, and dog has offspring. So it's not like you're doing some, a higher elevated thing.
Well,
so, you just got to question the motives, that's all.
I would model myself after the Joe Rogan fathering method, because I would say Steve, we're losing you. The other people are going to be populating the world then, Steve. The people that aren't questioning it at all, they're having the kids.
Yeah, but remember, I want to leave this world.
Oh, yeah, that's true. So there's better places anyway.
Yeah, there's better places than this world. So.
But I figure if I can follow Joe Rogan's footsteps and he just talks to the children like they're adults, explains the situation.
Well, that's important. You don't treat kids like little silly. I mean, they're human beings with minds and personalities of their own, and marginalizing them with baby talk and all this kind of stuff, man. They're people, man. They're just young. They don't have, their minds aren't completely formed yet, but. I always thought that was terrible when people talk down to kids like they're stupid or like they use that baby talk and so forth. It's not good for young children to be talked to like that.
But I would say Zach is he's tearing it up in jiu-jitsu right now. You got to be proud of that,
He and I always have been very close. In some ways, we're more like friends and father and son. We always had a real connection, and we still talk quite a bit. And I still mentor him and give him a lot of training and advice and so forth. And he's one of those kind of people that really listens. He really truly does, and he follows the advice. And he's done really well for himself. He really truly has. He's kind of going through the thing now where what is his purpose? Obviously jiu-jitsu is just a cool thing, but he has a lot of other talents. He's an incredible artist, and he would like to expand more into the artistic field. So he's looking for a way that he can make a living from his artistry. Some of his comic book work is just like mind blowing, man. It's like wow. So
let's get out there. Let's push that.
Yeah, man.
Let's push that. And what about the Steve Maxwell rite of passage seminar, Steve, or experience for children, or you can come up with some idea where maybe the youth can do something, a big experience.
For sure. I think for some fathers and sons in particular, it's really good to have a little rite of passage, Well, Zach and I had a couple of them. We used to take canoe trips together, and go out and camp and just port each the canoe and camp out in islands and alongside the river, and we did a bunch of outdoors stuff together. We drove from Los Angeles back to Philly one time after the Pan Ams. That was quite a father-son cross-country road trip. That was pretty cool. Had some real serious adventures along the way. So, yeah, it's I've been pretty pleased with Zach and the way he came out and the way he developed.
All right. Well, Steve, I don't want to take up any more of your time. Definitely want to hit you up in the future.
Yeah, for sure, man. It was a real pleasure. It's a lot of fun.
It's the pleasure's all mine because this is like talking, hopefully, to my future self.
Yeah.
I want everybody to go to Steve Maxwell SC.com. Oh no, Maxwell SC.com.
Yeah, for Maxwell Strength and Conditioning.
Yeah, and that's you should be. Besides all these stuff, you put out content for free. Buy up the online stuff. Buy the instant downloads. Go to the seminars. I'm certainly going to be at the Linwood, New Jersey, which I don't.
It's going to be a blast. It'll be epic. So we'll really have a good time.
Yeah, I'm gonna push it. This has been fantastic, Steve. Is there anything you want to plug, add, or say to anyone?
No, I mean other than thanks for listening, and see you around.
All right. We'll put everything below, Steve. It's been my pleasure.
Mancha.
Namaste.
Namaste. Bye now.
Bye-bye.